Who has a 100-word summary of the trouble you guys got into last session?
We spent most of the session either asking politely for the thing we came to get, or dicking around in an artificer's lair?
Or decoding the absolute worst and most obfuscated poetry of all time.
Yeah.
Forgot about the poetry.
Let this be a lesson to you. Security through obfuscation doesn't work.
Maybe the poetry is itself just another level of obfuscation.
I asked, and you said no. I
That's
made an
true.
intelligence check for that exact reason.
Unfortunately, it's not turtles all the way down.
Yeah, we're not in Dunfoss, we're in Blue Worm, because we decided that it would be best for us to just skip town, as we normally do when things go to hell.
That does seem to be the case.
Listen, when things get too hot, you skip town.
That's Investigator 101. You just push all of your problems underneath a rug, and eventually they will go away.
Go away. It goes away.
Is that how that works?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make a note of that.
Sometimes you have to stomp on the rug.
Sometimes you have to burn the rug down.
You have to burn the rug down. Okay.
Yep.
We should start up a school of business. I feel like we could teach some people something.
Seeker of the dark, always looking for the side hustle.
So you've been staying in the tower. It's a narrow shop with 3 floors, surrounded by other shops in this busy quarter of Blue Worm.
Yes.
Of the potentially crazed artificer, Lang Mad Metal. Among other things, you've discovered his arms hanging in the basement.
Yeah. That is the weird thing that we found.
I remember that.
And you found his book of poetry, which you've decoded, fawning over his artificer rival, Geraldine Stormling.
And we threatened his arms with it. But they were still non-responsive. Very rude.
Well, they're not non-responsive.
Non-responsive to threats.
Yeah, because arms don't have ears, silly.
Alright, so...
what is it you're trying to do with the arms? Maybe I misunderstood your intent.
So we had asked the arms, like, by attempting to, like, write the words onto there, where he was, and he refused to answer.
Well, that's not going to work, because you can't actually communicate with somebody that way. So...
Anyways, so what's our plan here, guys? We're currently waiting for a day on the person that we asked politely for a book.
Right.
What do you guys want to do for that day? Do you want to look into this Geraldine? She's got that horribly trapped mansion in town.
I mean, the only lead I think we have is Geraldine at the point. She's not here. I mean, maybe we should go investigate her house. I mean, if we have to, we could just skip town again, right?
I mean, we
running out of town to
have a goal to skip town. Because we're planning on going through that portal as soon as we get information on this book.
Right. There's plenty of towns to skip to.
So we might as well use our time that might require us to skip town wisely. So yeah, I think that's our go-to plan is we check out her crazy artificer trap and see if we can find a guy with no arms.
Oh, do you think it's well? No. Then how did his arms get back in the shop if he's caught in a trap? I still think he
Nailed
just
him back. I don't know.
I still think he just wanted cool robot arms and just came up with a solution that didn't involve like committing to the cool robot arms. Because I feel like if you cut your arms off, you're kind of committing to the cool robot arms. But if you stick them through portals, right? It's a try it before you buy it kind of situation.
Right.
So
what's next?
we're gonna go to the house of the lady that he wrote the poetry to. Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah,
More of a
house /
lab than a
workshop.
house. Have we considered maybe just asking the people there?
Well, we don't even know who's staying there at the moment because we know she's away with the
The war, yeah.
war effort.
Well, let's go see who's running the place with her out of town.
Right.
Okay.
Tracks.
All right.
The Stormling actually has two front-facing edifices in town. The one would be Stormling's workshop, which would be the equivalent of essentially Mad Metal's shop where you're staying now. This is where people would go in order to take on commissions, to speak with her or one of her apprentices. Behind that, though, because most of the storefronts, or most of the populated buildings in Blue Worm actually surround these more the city's farmland, rather than the farmland being a stretch outside of the city's outer walls. But in this particular case, the Stormling Manor takes up an entire block. You have the storefront out front. Surrounding the block are other stores, buildings, and businesses. Presumably all the land is owned by Stormling and her enterprises, but most of which are being leased out to other shops, several of which are lesser-known artificers in town. But there are several paths leading into what would be this large acre or so of farmland. In the center of that sits the rather opulent manor house itself, where Stormling's family are known to reside. It doesn't have the ancient and storied history as many of the great manors of Dunfoss, simply because this city is still very, very young. But it's a little strange that this much wealth is compacted into this small of a space, even in Blue Worm. That the area inside of this block is not used for farmland, but rather essentially the garden grounds for the house itself. So are we approaching the house, or are we approaching her shop?
Let's try the house first. See if there's anyone caretaking the place.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a weird way to say case to joint, but sure.
Shh. Stop saying the quiet part out loud.
We're gonna have to sit down, and you're gonna have to tell us what all of the quiet parts are.
There are no quiet parts. I don't know what you're talking about.
Doesn't take long. Next door to her shop, in between her shop and a large tavern servicing the area, is an alleyway leading in between the buildings, which widens as it goes. And at the end of it is a large iron-wrought gate, which fences off the gardens beyond. And that gate's as far as you make it. It is currently closed and sealed magically. And you're told by those in the area, essentially what you've already heard, that Stormling is traveling north, that her shop is just a skeleton crew right now, and that nobody's being admitted up into the manor. So the entire garden surrounding the manor house has this iron fencing around it. There's a north gate and a south gate. The one you've approached is the north gate. The south gate would be for admitting wagons and supplies and things, rather than visitors on foot. Other than the fact that the gate is closed, there don't seem to be any other protections in place. She doesn't have armed guards stationed around. There aren't laser drones that you can see crisscrossing the gardens. The house itself, it's smaller than most manor houses you would have seen in Dunfoss, because there's less physical space for it to occupy. But that's what your immediate blockage is.
How tall is the wall?
12 feet or so. And it's not a wall. It's an iron, offensive iron bars. Presumably so you can look through and see the opulence of the gardens and the house on the other side.
Okay. Do we just try to break in, or do we go?
Let's go check the shop.
Yeah.
Let's exhaust all of our options first.
Before we do the crime?
Yeah.
Let's make sure if there are any witnesses.
Alexander, you are probably aware of the name Stormling simply because some of her, especially alchemical ingredients, will end up on the market in Dunfoss. It's a name that would be associated with strange powders, acids and bases, various kinds of mechanical oils, that sort of thing. That isn't often manufactured in Dunfoss, but is more commonly manufactured in Blue Worm. Going into the shop, it's much less cluttered than Mad Metals is. There's two main counters as you go in. One lines the side of the shop to your left, and it is essentially a glass case. And inside of it, it looks like a jeweler's case, almost. And inside of it are clockwork parts, things that are moving. And the difference between what you're seeing here and what you saw at Mad Metals is that these are clearly things that they're mechanisms, but they're not complete. You can't look at them and know what they are unless you already know what they are. If that makes sense. Whereas Mad Metal was much more interested in creating self-contained devices that had shapes, that had some elements of style to them. Or even if you didn't know what the device did, you could still look at it and be impressed by it.
Mm-hmm.
The other counter at the far end of the shop as you go in has a gnome who hops down from his bench behind it as you enter. And it's a series of cabinets across the front of the counter. You see heavy locks, padlocks, on each of them. And you can hear the jingling of the keys that the gnome has when he hops down off of his bench. And looking into some of these cabinets, Alexander, you recognize the tempered or crystalled glass required to hold various kinds of acids and solvents safely. The gnome hits the ground, strides over, and he has a piece of parchment in his hand. In his left hand, he has a quill that he dabs in an inkwell that he wears in a contraption on his zippered vest. And he welcomes you to the Industries and regrets to inform you that currently Stormling is not taking new commissions, although he is happy to add your names to a waiting list. And he stands expectantly, waiting to hear your names.
We're Flumph Inc. We're a Dunfossian detective agency. My name's Alexander.
And he furiously scratches that down.
We're not necessarily looking for any commissions, though. There might be some reagents I might need to stock. I wouldn't mind stocking back up on. We're more interested in what was going on with the what would out of character brick? What would I like? The lady of the house? How should I say? How would I think that I should say this?
That would be appropriate styling, you think?
With the lady of the house, this moment, we're sort of on a semi-official business of the new king, and interested in getting a tally on her current contributions to the war effort from here.
And he scratches pretty much all of it down on this roll of parchment. Then he drops the quill into another compartment on his zippered vest, rolls the parchment up. And he looks like he's very, very pleased with what you've just said. He grins and welcomes you to step up to the counter. He says, perhaps a demonstration.
Yeah, sure.
Reaches under the counter, pulls out two objects. The first thing he places is a small crystal vial that has some mercurial black liquid in it. The other thing he places on the counter is a severed finger in a bird cage.
That didn't take long.
Mm-hmm.
The finger is in real bad shape, but it's not dead. It's writhing back and forth like a worm and wriggling there in place.
That's not pleasant.
He assures you that what you're about to see is perfectly safe and that you're in no danger whatsoever.
Let him do his thing, I suppose.
Yeah. I see no need to interrupt this.
And he starts to go into what must be a very well-rehearsed sales pitch. He almost takes on the persona of a carnival barker as he's showing you how this works. And he informs you that the creature inside of the cage is undead, reaffirms his assurance that you are all safe, there's nothing to fear from the creature writhing there, but that the lady has developed a potent weapon in the form of this crystal vial. He takes the top off. There's a glass dropper that he moves ever so gingerly over to the top of this little bird cage and very carefully measures out precisely one drop of the fluid, which oozes out of the dropper through the wire of the bird cage and onto the writhing finger. And it sizzles and spatters and pops, and the thing flip-flops back and forth as in intense pain. And then lies
Do you
still.
mind if I borrow your dropper and your finger for a moment? For a comparison?
Are you asking for the gnome's finger or for the undead finger?
No, the undead, the birdcage.
Oh, he tells you that, unfortunately, specimens like this are extremely expensive and hard to come by. That he could not, in good conscience, turn them over to a customer.
And Alex will fish through his pack, go into the bag of holding, and pull out a vial of holy water. Do you mind showing me what a drop of normal holy water does to it, for comparison's sake?
And he smiles brightly once again. Says, of course, but we'll have to wait until the creature reanimates. So this will take several minutes. I do have a kettle on.
Sure.
The moment he said undead,
Mm-hmm.
Connor's eyes just kind of narrowed. But he doesn't say anything.
It's just like a pink. Is it just like an index finger flopping around in this cage?
Make a medicine check.
Oh, okay. That is A 12.
A 12?
Yeah.
Could be an index finger.
I mean, I was just trying to. I wasn't like asking in from the sense of like trying to find anything out. I was actually asking to kind of like picture it in my brain. But yeah, it's funny.
You hear the whistle of the kettle. He brings out a tray with some little biscuits and serves everybody tea. And the whole time he's still in sales pitch mode. How he's explaining how difficult it is to source objects like this creature that they use for these kinds of experiments. How they've done experiments like this on a larger scale, which have swayed the priests of Osprem in the High Temple. And he talks about some of the large and rigorous process of experimentation of alchemical know-how that go into, like, just the years and years of toil. Just really talking up his mistress, essentially.
So how much of this stuff have you sent to this front line so far?
He's delighted to inform you that Lady Stormblood has... Lady Stormling has manufactured 2 30-gallon vats of this substance that she was planning to sell on the market, presumably to druids and other adventurers who hunt or fight undead, demon hunters, perhaps expeditions to the Underdark. But when word came down that there was an army of vampires attacking the dwarven kingdoms to the north, she very selflessly made plans and packed it all up into a caravan that she could travel north with.
Wait, vampires? That's like new information to me.
Is it?
Yeah, I think at this point it's just been there's an army of undead.
Yeah, that's all we.
To the front here, it makes sense that they would have more information.
You guys fought the original vampires.
I mean,
I figured that there was a whole adventure designed around it. You guys went to a house, and there was a halfling.
We haven't made the connection.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Okay.
I think, but this is like the first time an NPC has actually said that it's actually an army of vampires.
It's a bad scene.
Yeah. So,
Well, it might be. It sounds more like it might be an army of undead led by vampires, which actually makes some sense because I don't think zombies are particularly good at like giving
Leading.
orders.
Yeah.
And as if on cue, the finger begins writhing again. And looking at it now, you can see the mark that the drop of the fluid from the dropper made on, like, just above the knuckle on this finger. And you can see similar marks all over it, where it looks cratered and stretched. And then the gnome asks you if you've brought a sample of holy water that he could further demonstrate.
Yeah, I've got a bottle of holy water.
Now he tells you that, of course, an entire bottle of holy water, upended on so small a specimen, of course would destroy it utterly. This much is known by any of the acolytes of Osprem living in Blue Worm.
No. Obviously, we just want to see the effect of a equivalent drop to see how much more potent this new concoction is.
So you supply him with holy water?
Yeah.
And he asks you how you sourced this holy water. He asks you if you know specifically the god that has blessed it.
Did we get this from Garglitter Gold, guys?
We sure did.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I'll tell them. We got it from the priests of Garglitter Gold.
And it is your affirmation that it is in fact holy water, not simply, say, moat water or river water.
I wouldn't be here talking to you if it weren't.
And you are, of course, also affirming that it's not magicked in some other way. For example, I'm not going to pour it out and it's going to burst into flames or turn into snakes.
No, I mean, I hadn't. The first 2 worked fine. We bought 3.
He produces his own larger eyedropper from a rack of tools on his side of the counter. Takes out a considerable amount of the water from your vial. And then he hands you the dropper and asks if you would like to do the honors.
Sure. And I'll hold it over the birdcage and drop the water onto the finger.
And while Alex is doing this, guys, the gnome is watching with anticipation. Like he's thoroughly enjoying it. Like he's stopping just short of making like a fishing reel motion. Because he's so sure that you're all going to be convinced. Alexander, you'll be glad to know that the holy water does in fact damage this finger. But as it does, it doesn't just flop over violently and stop moving. It throws itself at the side of the birdcage towards you. It lunges at the source of the pain being caused it. There's a smell of burnt flesh for a moment as the drop of water hits near the tip of the finger. Fortunately for you, the wires of the cage zap with electricity as the thing inside of it smacks against the side. And it twitches for a moment and rolls back to the center. And he says, and so is demonstrated the superiority of my lady's device over the more common specimens from the church. When you burn the undead, but do not burn them completely, as is the case with any motions to your small, pissant little vial of holy water, you do not stop them, whereas a mere drop of my lady's concoction renders them stunned, so they may be dispatched with any means necessary.
2 questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
One, like, how expensive is this stuff to manufacture? And 2, how do you propose getting it into the undead?
And I will answer both of those questions in just a moment. My apologies. Somebody is knocking on my door. Oh, I hope it's that guy again.
Oh, it's snowing.
Snow's cool.
I'm sorry.
Texas?
Yeah.
Is that like one that snows in hell?
I actually heard from a friend that it was snowing in Texas.
Yeah. It's probably not gonna stick because it's like it's not below freezing currently. And... No, mostly we just get freezing rain, which is objectively worse than snow.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Not even close.
I've seen some very pretty results of freezing rain, but not worth it.
Have you stepped on some very pretty results of freezing rain?
Yeah, it's not worth it. Like, there's also like there are times I've seen freezing rain actually make like trees and stuff look really cool.
Yeah.
You know, maybe even more so than snow. But God, that stuff's
Sorry
on.
about that. That was Jehovah's Witnesses. At least they were wearing masks. Okay. I don't know for a fact that they were Jehovah's Witnesses, but they were. Never mind. They were wearing masks. God bless them. Let's get back to what we were doing. Treble, you had asked 2 questions.
Correct.
The first was, how much does this stuff cost to manufacture? And he very excitedly informs you that a third vat of the concoction is already being distilled in the lady's shop. My dog is just going to be going ham for the next 20 minutes. There's nothing I can do about that.
She wants to convert.
The Jesus people came and he got all agitated. Ugh. The cost to Flumph Inc. or to whatever, to the new king they represent, for example, would be comparatively small for the amount of protection they would get, especially considering Dunfoss is closer to the front of this undead army. He quotes you that a vat of this liquid is manufactured for as little as 300 pieces of gold and is scalable to unseen magnitude.
How long does the effect last?
He tells you that in proper trials done in like live fire trials against actual undead, zombies and the like, the effect lasted long enough to produce other methods of dispatching the creature permanently. Most popular being, of course, fire, but sword or axe or spell works just as well. As long as it's administered within the next 60 to 90 seconds,
and the substance doesn't lose its efficacy, it itself preserves itself.
this is where he smiles even more brightly than before and says he would like to show you another mechanism that his lady has developed.
Here comes the upsell.
This is where he shows you all the accessories and parts.
We're gonna need the undercoating.
Y'all about to get Billy mazed.
Do you
Okay,
invent a
dude.
super soaker?
You
to
get
shoot
the
stuff?
holy water. You get the crucifix. You
No,
get the
his
silver
stuff is better than holy water.
There has to be an easier way. But with holy water and zombies.
Just George Clooney on the wrong side of the door from dusk till dawn. Zombies are banging on the outside. There's gotta be a better way. He shows you what is essentially this like aerosol spray device. It looks somewhat similar to one of Alexander's firearms, but actually, I don't know what Alexander's firearms look like. What are we talking here? Like just like a pistol? Is it?
I mean, his primary gun is just a musket with a ton of extra tubes and side-loading chamber.
Okay.
Half a dozen extra triggers, a bunch of places he can slot in different bullets or liquids.
Okay, so the musket is pretty close to what this device looks like. With 2 main differences. It still has like a large flared barrel at the end, but the flare is wider. It's more of an oval shape than circular. And you see where the barrel at the front actually connects to 2 long metal tubes making up the barrel coming down the middle. So you hold the thing by a stock in your left hand, and your right hand operates a pump on the back. And he shows you the compartment where you put liquid into, which of course would have to be done in a proprietary glass jar that they provide that has a mechanism on the top of it that it screws and latches into place. And as you pump it with your right hand, and he demonstrates this with you, and it makes a very satisfying swoosh, swoosh, swoosh sound. He tells you that the liquid inside the bottle is converted into an aerosol that is then dispersed over a very wide area. In fact, he would like to demonstrate this for you using common water, which this device will reduce to a pleasing mist.
Gustavus, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I thought he was describing a super soaker at first.
Basically, but like if the super soaker takes water in and shoots water. Imagine a super soaker that disperses a mist out of the front of it.
It's like you have a misting nozzle for your cleaning spray bottle.
Kind of. That's closer, but that's still like a spray. What he does is he takes his glass decanter of water and pours it into this proprietary jar with the screw-on mechanism. And he places the device upside down on top of it so he can screw the water into place. And you hear the catch. And when he turns it back over, you see it's actually a little unwieldy because now it's top-heavy. It's got this heavy jar of water screwed into the top of it. But he aims it upwards at the roof, and he pumps it a few times. In the first couple pumps, nothing happens. But eventually, fog starts emanating out of the rifle end of this device. And he tells you that each burst of fog is a mere droplet or less of water, and that this action can be done continuously for a fair amount of time. Therefore, dispersing this incredibly potent undead-stopping fluid over a large area, perhaps, say, a zombie horde.
Speaking of a zombie horde, what sorts of undead have you tested it on?
He name drops a couple of the more well-known druids or maybe sorcerers in Blue Worm. There are no small number of just large tracts of wilderness all around Blue Worm. You guys trekked through some of it on your way here. And some of these places, to put it bluntly, are just haunted forests. There's places where the land is known to turn corpses that are placed into it. There are places that are known to have strong connections to the Shadowfell. So he is not only happy to inform you that this has been tested against all forms of reanimated flesh, but he's happy to give you the names of people in Blue Worm that can vouch for these experiments in live fields.
Have you tried it on vampires? Actual vampires?
And he just reaffirms what he's already said. It's been tried against all manner of reanimated flesh. And is found effective.
I'll take that name. Those names.
Okay, he drops the names of a few predominantly druids and other forms of monster hunters. Essentially the kinds of, like Inaharis, Warlock's Bane type people.
Oh.
He doesn't drop her name specifically, but he gives you the names of several others.
And how much are you wanting for the whole kit? The propane and propane accessories? Pro undead pain?
He expects that a vat of, like he said, a vat of the liquid can be manufactured for as little as 300 pieces of gold.
Cool. That's not actually that bad.
Yeah, how big a vat are we talking about here?
20 gallons, right?
Yeah, she had manufactured 2 vats of 20 gallons apiece.
20 gallons. Yeah, that's not bad.
And, like, if he's
If you
not
compare
lying-
25 gold for that vial of holy water.
Well, I was just thinking, like, compare it to swords.
Yeah.
Like, a long sword is what, 25 gold pieces? If this stuff actually works, it's probably better than 6 peasants with longswords.
I think it just matches up fairly easily 1-for-1 against 25 gold for a vial of holy water.
What? Well, can't you? Couldn't you just do the same thing with holy water in your proprietary system then?
You could, but the holy water does not stun the target. It merely damages them.
And it costs a lot more.
Because the problem with lighting a zombie on fire is now the zombie is on fire and still coming towards you.
Fair.
What this concoction specifically does is it stuns them. So they're unable to move for a good minute and a half, during which time you can use your imagination.
Can I and I'm gonna like gesture at the gun. I promise I won't break it or anything. Can you mind if I just hold it to see how it feels, kind of thing?
Oh, and he gives you the whole rundown on how to actually operate the thing and where the mechanisms and where you need to place your hands.
Okay.
And holding it in your hands, it doesn't feel like you're going to break it. It doesn't feel very fragile.
All right. I'll just pump it a few times and point it at, I don't know. I'll point it at Lucius and just start pumping fog in his face. I just want to see how long it takes until it runs down. Is it empty?
You can... But I mean, by the time this is empty, the whole room will be incredibly humid, and Lucius will be very, very wet.
I don't see a problem.
But you could be at this for quite some time.
Lucius is not going to stand there and consent to this. He's going to step back and away.
I mean, I'm not going to, like, follow you or anything.
He is. He's going to follow you all day.
I mean...
Lucius is going to be sitting there trying to eat his lunch, and Gus is just blowing fog into his soup.
So, like, but what he's saying is, like, a literal, like, singular drop of this stuff will, like, is an entire burst.
Yeah, pretty much. Just as a drop of water is emitted as a burst of fog. The mechanism, of course, is itself ingenious, but it was developed by the lady many, many years ago as more of a curiosity.
Gus is going to look at Alexander, and he's going to, like, give him puppy dog eyes.
I mean, I could probably build something like that, but...
The gnome assures you that in the most polite way he can think of that you could not.
Well, so, like, okay, so $300 gold for a vat, and Gus kind of shakes the super soaker, because that's just what it is in my brain now. Like, he shakes the super soaker, and like, how much is this? This is where they get you, isn't it?
Alex, what was the effective cost of, like, time and materials in building one of your firearms?
I think it was 50, but let me double check real quick.
It would be comparable to that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's 500.
Okay. So yeah, it would be comparable to that. That would involve a lot of the development of it. Obviously, you could, if you're going to, there's no such thing as mass producing anything in Blue Worm, but
Which also means it's 10 weeks of work to construct one, if I were to do it.
How many of those can you actually create with your class feature?
I'm sorry?
How many types of firearms can you create with your class feature? Like, you have your lightning
I would
one.
just be using smithing.
Okay.
I could make one of them magical, maybe two if I juggled my infusions a little bit. But in terms of just the actual mundane equipment, it's just using the smithing skill.
Okay. The gnome informs you that the lady owns 8 such devices, one of which is here that Gus is currently playing with. The other 7 she took with her to the north.
And I'll just kind of have Gus, like, motion for Gus to come down so I can whisper to him and I'll say, it's probably about 3 months of work to put one of those together.
Okay. I'll hand him back his... Like, are you saying that with the intent of you're going to make me one?
Well, it's 3-person month, so if we can find if we can find anyone else with the proper skills, and then hire them.
And the gnome begins making inquiries about whether the new king of Dunfoss is interested in striking a commission at this time. And
No, he was mostly sending us to scout, effectively. He wanted to find out about anything he should know about, and then he could send an actual trade representative.
And he says that that's excellent. Do you know on or about when we would be expecting that representative to arrive?
It's very busy work taking over running a kingdom. I don't have the details, I'm afraid.
Everything's
They've been,
still
as you can imagine, quite busy with the change of power and the ongoing war.
Also, we found it to be a bad idea to put a deadline on a king.
Well, he hopes that the demonstration of the fluid and of the mechanism has been enlightening, and that you will report a favorable discovery to the new king.
But wouldn't the generals serving on the front line already have a favorable report for the lady's presence herself with the other 2 vials?
He says that sadly they have not yet received news from the front.
I have a few questions.
He's delighted to hear them.
Does this work with any liquid, or only the specific chemical?
He says that in theory, the more viscous a liquid is, the less effective this particular delivery system will be.
Mm-hmm.
How long do you think it would last if you were to load it down with acid?
He tells you he would expect it to not last very long at all, because the acid would corrode the mechanisms in the device.
So it's not built of something resistant to corrosion?
He tells you that a device could be constructed to resist the corroding effects of acid, depending on how strong of an acid you were talking. But this particular device was built for water.
So if I were to put, say, instead of water, a venom, and started shooting around and would make a fog, would that fog be poisonous?
He tells you that depends on the precise venom being used. It's his understanding that most venom has to be injected into the bloodstream through a bite or a cut in order to be effective, and that simple skin exposure in most cases is not effective.
Is it an effective system for delivering things that need to be inhaled?
Oh, of course. As though to demonstrate, he cranes his head upwards and inhales some of the fog still listing about the room.
Gus points the thing at him and shoots a burst of fog in his face to assist.
He's delighted because you're simply demonstrating the efficacy of this delivery system.
I have... When Connor's done asking his questions, I have one more.
Now, this liquid is specific for undead.
Correct. Well, specifically reanimated flesh. Flesh that was once alive, but is no longer.
So, I don't suppose it would be possible to come up with a different kind of liquid for, say, perhaps something of viciously magical in origin, say like a fey creature.
He tells you that if you could produce such a liquid, that this mechanism would disperse it in exactly the same way as your friend here is demonstrating now with water.
Sure, but I'm asking, is it possible for you to come up with such a liquid?
Oh dear, no. He's merely a clerk, but the untold genius of the Lady Stormling, he sure has no bounds. And he asks you if you would like to put your name on the waiting list for such a commission.
Connor doesn't say anything, but just gives a slight nod. Like, yeah.
All right, he writes down your name on his parchment and tells you that when the lady returns from the front, she'll be resuming her important work here, and within the year, most likely you will be contacted and they can hash out the details of the commission. And he looks forward to doing business with you.
So, I do have one more question about the liquid specifically. And this is more of a mechanical question, and that can it be applied to a weapon as like an oil can?
In its current state, no, because its current state is
It's too thin.
essentially, yeah, it's been thinned so that it can go through this particular aerosol mechanism.
What if I were
however,
to suspend it within a gelatin?
I'm sorry, what?
What if I were to suspend it within a gelatin?
It's actually not necessary to go so far as a gelatin. There is a process by which the liquid can be made more akin to an oil, the type that some use to slather upon their swords and then douse in flame. Effectively, what that would do is it would apply the effect to the weapon, which would be ineffective after one successful hit.
Mm-hmm.
So basically the same rules as applying poison to a weapon.
So it's basically like one weapon swing or like 3 pieces of ammunition or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a much, much less efficient way of doing things than the dispersal unit you hold in your hands, he points out.
Could a spellcaster somehow infuse this liquid into, say, a cloud of fog spell?
Make an insight check.
Seven. That's a 7.
7. He tells you that so far, unfortunately, experiments in that regard have been unsuccessful. It's possible in theory, but the magics used in crafting such spells interfere with the magics that go into distilling the liquid.
So the liquid itself is magical.
Oh, of course.
So, do you mind? I'm gonna like step to the side. I'm gonna hand him his thing, and like if we get a moment to confer without out of earshot of this guy, I am gonna say I think we should buy some of this stuff. If for no other reason, then Alex maybe can reverse engineer it because patents don't exist.
Well, there's nowhere in the shop to confer without him hearing. The
Right.
storefront that is kind of open to the public is not. It's not large enough for that. It would be very. If you guys was all crowded in one corner and whispered, that would be very suspicious and rude.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, regardless, I think we should get some.
Well, what is he willing to sell a smaller portion of it than a vat?
Unfortunately, he can't at this time. The shop is closed to those sorts of inquiries, and also he has special instruction from the Lady Stormling to allow the liquid to continue to coalesce in its vat currently, just in case a third is needed for the war effort in the north.
So wait, what is he actually trying to sell us here?
He's giving... You guys presented yourselves as being representatives of the King of Dunfoss. He's giving you...
Yeah,
the
he's not
sales-
offering to sell us anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, I think we got the whole spiel.
He seems
Yeah.
very pleased with himself, and he puts down Connor's name on a waiting list for... like, fairy repellent?
Yes.
So, there is that scene in the beginning of Labyrinth where Hoggle is just spraying fairies. Is that what you want? Is that what we're getting at here?
Sure.
Just get you like.
I was thinking more of like The Simpsons with the guy with the flamethrower laughing, but that works too.
Okay.
Okay.
So, having gotten the spiel, he asks if there's anything else he can assist you with.
Is there anybody currently what was the word we gosh, taking care of the house that the lady lives in that we could speak to.
On what business?
Investigatory work?
Well, isn't that what you're doing here at the shop?
Yes.
So, like, on what business are you paying a social call to the house in the lady's absence? Would be the question here. Like, what cause are you telling him you have to visit the house rather than the shop?
All Gus is gonna say is just continued investigatory work. Very hush hush.
Well, then he tells you that the lady has servants, of course, that are maintaining the estate in her absence, but that they would not be receiving visitors. Of course, you understand.
And Seeker will ask him if there's a store nearby where he could buy a few items. Just stuff that you might use for artifice work. I'm just looking for someone trustworthy, you know? And then Seeker will just name, like, some ball bearings, that sort of thing.
Yeah, there are shops right here in this very block that have such tools.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Well, I think we'll be on our way then.
He thanks you very much for your time.
Thank you for the demonstration.
He begins to carefully pack away the stuff that he had gotten out.
Yep.
Okay.
Alright, let's make our way out.
Okay.
And
Yep.
having attempted to distract the guy, as soon as they get around the corner, Seeker just slaps the back of Gus's leg.
Like, considering I'm wearing
Rattles
plate
him
mail,
up.
it probably hurts you more than it does me.
It's more the feeling of the thing.
It's like just ting. What?
But I was being genuine. I do want to buy a few things, and Seeker will pop into the shop to do so.
What are you buying?
I'd like to buy some ball bearings.
Are we just talking PHP stuff?
Yeah, PHP stuff.
Okay.
PHP stuff except for one thing, which is like a bit of a weird thing. I'd just like to buy some glass. And I'll give you my reasoning here.
Glass what?
Glass that I'm planning on shattering. So I just need anything made out of glass.
Like a pane, like a glass pane, or just like a cup?
Like, it could be a cup. Let me just go through my reasoning so it makes a bit more sense.
Okay.
I just got animate objects, which lets me bring non-magical objects to life. And then at the end of it, it says that if you use a specific object, it might use a slashing or piercing damage based on its form. So I was thinking I'll buy some ball bearings, I'll buy some blowgun needles, and I'll buy some glass, and that'll give me bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing.
Okay. Yeah, all that materials in the PHP.
Yep. And I'll just buy it quickly. Head back out.
For real though, what did I do wrong?
And Seeker just says, "Why are you drawing attention to the fact that we want to investigate them?"
I thought we were asking politely while we're here in Blue Worm.
And Seeker just looks.
Gustavus.
Seeker just looks at Lucius and Alex, as in, "See, this is what you get when you start letting him think that we're just asking people for things." Starts blowing our cover.
We don't have cover.
We have cover?
I mean, to be fair, what cover do we have? We introduce ourselves directly as an investigative body named Flumph Incorporated.
Seeker just shakes his head at all of you.
I mean, my thought is if you do want to break in, and once we're out of earshot of anyone, my thought is if we do want to take a better look at this place, let's wait until we've done whatever the other job is so that we can then immediately go through this portal. By the way, should we maybe investigate how we get through that portal? Do you think they charge a portal fee?
1 second before we go, and Seeker will just, like, walking down the street and trying to get, like, in the middle between the shop and the factory, I guess you would call it. Cast Locate Creature, trying to see if Mad Metal is on the premises.
So where are you standing?
I'm just like outside the shop and the house. I just want to be near both so that if
Well, you can't
they're
get-
both within the 1,000 feet.
If you try to get near your house, you're going to be breaking into, like, going through this fence. You can't get near the house.
I can get within like 1,000 feet of it though, right? Like it's not like super far back, or is it like on like a manor grounds?
It's on a manor grounds. There's gardens in between you and the house.
All right,
So
well
if you
then
look
just
at
the factory then.
If there's not a factory. If you look at the map, you see these city blocks that encase
Yeah.
this farmland.
Yeah.
This is what we're looking at here. So the house sits in the center of this, except instead of farmland being used for agrarian purposes, it's just a large gardens area. And the house sits in the center of it. So if you want to use a spell in order to divine it, you're going to have to get closer than you can from the street.
Well, for
You
now
can't-
then I'll just get the shop.
Okay? You cast a spell and you don't find man metal inside the shop.